What's up, strongest men, women, and children from blocks all around the world? I am my block's strongest man, and this is the greatest time of the year for strength sports, World's Strongest Man 2021.
Ciao, homie.
So today we're going to be talking about the 2021 World's Strongest Man predictions, specifically the World's Strongest Man 2021 qualifiers predictions, and what the World's Strongest Man 2021 groups are that were just revealed yesterday. We'll also talk about the World's Strongest Man 2021 events and how they play out for each of the groups. Now, I'll tell you that I've worked on this analysis for weeks and weeks and weeks, without knowing first even what the events were. And I put out a video at that point, which you may have watched, where I had JF Caron, Alexei Novikov, and Jerry Pritchett on the podium. And it's funny how knowing the events changed my whole analysis. We're running short on time, so I wanted to get it in before World's Strongest Man starts. And then yesterday, all of a sudden, after I finished all of my analysis, they revealed the groups so that I could redo the analysis the right way for the third time. So it's really interesting how the results changed each time depending on approach. And we'll take a look now at what that looks like. So let's have a look at my block's strongest spreadsheet here, and we'll have a look at what we think is going to happen. So first of all, let's go through what the events are. And in the qualifiers, which is what we're talking about today, just the qualifiers for now, we have a frame/loading medley. And now the weights that we have here are what Big Laz shared on his YouTube channel, which I think were kind of just conjecture, like his best guesses based on maybe some things he heard here and there. None of these are confirmed as far as I'm aware, so don't take them as gospel. But the frame would be, we think, somewhere in the 340 to 360 kilo range, followed by squat or deadlift. And from what Big Laz was thinking on his channel, and by the way, I consider him kind of the mentor of all mentors as far as YouTube strongman content and predictions. So if he feels that that may be what's going to happen, I'm going to go with that. So we'll say it's either or. And that'll be a 200 to 300 kilo range of fingers. We're thinking 4 fingers. The overhead medley follows that. So it's 2 dumbbells. And as far as we're aware, not both at the same time, one at a time, somewhere in the 95 to 110 kilo range each. And then we have a circus barbell. So as opposed to the circus dumbbell that you may be more accustomed to, a actual full barbell with the globes on the end, kind of very whippy bar, which has been a challenge for some of the guys to mimic in prep. And then the end of that medley would be an axle. So we think that circus barbell will be somewhere in the 160 to 175 kilo range, and the axle 163 kilos. Then it's followed by a little bit of a controversial event. Some of the athletes don't necessarily think this is a great test of pure strength, but a pickaxe hold. So you basically hold the axe out in front of you for time, right? So it'll be, we think, a 25 to 30 kilo pickaxe, holding it out in front of you for time. And you'll see some of the guys, actually a small number of the guys, have actually practiced this in prep. And then, of course, you have the situation where first place in the group automatically goes through the final. Second and third have to fight it off in a stone off over bar. And so that'll be a rising weight of stones, starting off at 140 kilo stone up to a 210 kilo, which would be the last stone in that run for the stone off. And then if they go back and forth with the stones and, you know, both guys do the 210, they go for reps with the 210. It doesn't increase anymore after that. So those are the events that we're going to be seeing. Who are the competitors? So if you don't know who the competitors yet are for this year's World's Strongest Man, here they are with their heights and weights. So Gavin Bilton of Great Britain at 6'6", 440 will be joining us once again. Adam Bishop as well, 6'3", 320 from Great Britain. Maxime Boudreau, who I interviewed on this channel, and you should check it out if you haven't yet, greatly improved this year, if you aren't aware, especially in the stones. He's really attacked all of his weaknesses and is coming back incredible this year. 6'4", 325 for him. And the reason I'm mentioning heights and weights is because I think there are certain events like the Fingal's Fingers, maybe if they make it to the finals, the Titans Turntable, where girth and weight matter in terms of overcoming the weight of the opposing object, right? So then, of course, we have JF Caron, 11th time at World's Strongest Man, 9-time Canada's Strongest Man, and 2 times on my channel. So definitely go check him out as well. Watch those videos if you haven't yet. His insight is incredible about his own training and about everybody else. 6'3", 342. We then have Kevin Ferris returning this year at 6'2", 270. Then we have Mark Felix, the ageless wonder, 6'4", 309. And then Johnny Hansen, Sweden's strongest man at 6'6", 403, a really giant man. And then we have Graham Hicks at 5'10", 359. Terry Hollins, 6'6", 342. Great to see Terry back again, and very eager to see what he'll do this year. Athor Melstead, who I also interviewed on this channel and gave us some great information there about his overhead pressing power and his moving event prowess. He stands 6'1", is 313, and is back this year. And then Konstantin Janasha, who did not compete last year, is here this year and a force to be reckoned with. If you look at some of that deadlift prep specifically and keg over bar, looking really, really good. So Konstantin is a big man, 6'5", 375 pounds. We then move on to Trey Mitchell, who won Texas Strongest Man this year and is really looking incredible. And everyone else I've interviewed, I tell them how good I think Trey is looking this year. And Trey is 6'4", 340. Alexei Novikov, last year's champion, returns at 6'1", 298. Smaller competitor, but proved last year that didn't matter at all. So we'll see how that manifests itself with this set of events. When I spoke with JF Caron, he felt like, and if you haven't watched that video yet, you should, he felt like this particular set of events is better suited to Brian Shaw than it is to Alexei, but we'll see how that all plays out. And so then we have Robert Oberst at 6'7", 410, another really giant guy. We'll see if maybe Fingal's fingers or things like that will be kind of a good fit for a big guy of his size. And of course, he's always an overhead pressing threat. And then the return of a fan favorite, one of my favorites. He's been on my channel a few times too, Travis Ortmeyer, 6'3", 325, and probably the best storyteller in strongman. If you haven't watched my series of interviews with Travis, you should. Jerry Pritchett, 6'4", 360, returns this year as well, and Jerry has incredible deadlifting and just frame carrying in a variety of different areas. Is really, really a force to be reckoned with. Jerry Pritchett. So then we have Luke Richardson from Great Britain at 6'3", 342. And then, of course, the four-time champion going for his fifth title, Brian Shaw, 6'8". And he's, last I heard, slimmed down to about 385. I don't know what weight he's going to come into the contest with, but we'll go with that for now. I think he's trying to be a little quicker in some of the events. And, of course, he has incredible power. So be awesome to see Brian win another one if possible. We then have Mikhail Shivlikov, 6'2", 309 from Russia. Evan Singleton, who had that bicep injury last year, is back with a vengeance this year. If you have not checked out his Instagram, you should. Some of the stuff he's doing in prep is truly, truly astounding. He comes in at 6'6", 350 from my research, as far as I could tell. And Ivar Smakstelis from Latvia, 6'2", 324. We're trying to actually arrange an interview with him. It may happen after World's Strongest Man, but that'll be an awesome one, so tune in for that. And then the Stoltman brothers, Luke at 6'3", 353, and Tom at 6'8", about 384, Great Britain, Scotland, to be precise. So great to see the Stoltman World's Strongest brothers competing once again. And then we have Bobby Thompson, who has been really on a tear in the last year or so, maybe even less than a year or so, starting off with Mammoth Strain Challenge in January. He was just unbelievable with the deadlifting and a variety of other events there, and just has gone on to big deadlift, American log press record. Like, this guy is just unbelievable. So if he can make it into the finals, he can do well there. I think that particular set of events is really well suited to Bobby. And then we have Chris Venderlinde from South Africa, another awesome guy, super powerful deadlifter. And he and JF, I would say, are the guys, and Brian also to a certain degree, are kind of keeping their event-specific training very close to the vest and not showing very much. So you kind of had to extrapolate a bit and know what they've done in the past and so forth to talk about some predictions here. But those are the events. Those are the competitors. What are the groups? So if you're watching this video, you don't want to hear all the generic feelings of who other channels think are going to win. You want to see analysis by the numbers in the greatest detail anywhere on YouTube, and that's what I do here. So moving into Group 1, who is in Group 1 for this year's World's Strongest Man 2021? Well, it's Maxime Boudreau, who is greatly improved this year. If you haven't tracked this guy, I've interviewed him. You should check out my interview about Maxime, and you'll see the great improvement he's made in many areas, most notably in stones. This guy's a killer on stones this year. We have Ivar Smokstelis, who did incredibly hit the podium in Wus Bahrain and has been just on a tear since first being noticed a few years ago in Strongman Champions League. He is doing incredible things in everything he competes in, so going to be doing very great here. Graham Hicks, if you haven't checked out Graham Hicks and his workouts with Big Laz and Mark Felix recently, he surprised me with some incredible deadlifting, so we'll have to take a look there. Although rumor has it this group isn't going to get deadlift. Of course, he will if he makes the finals, but rumor has it they get squats and Fingal's fingers in Group 1, not deadlift or train pull. So we'll have to go with that assumption for now, barring, there isn't any official announcement of that, but folks have kind of pieced together online from information they've heard in different sources. So we'll go with that. Of course, the perennial 4-time World's Strongest Man champion Brian Shaw, going for his 5th title this year, is in Group 1. And then we have the legendary, my buddy, Travis Ortmeyer. I've had him on my channel a few times. And if you haven't checked out those videos, you should. Maybe the best storyteller in all of Strongman. Travis Ortmeyer's been through World's Strongest Man, IFSA, Fortissimus, every big competition internationally in the world. He's been there. And you should definitely check him out. And you should definitely be super excited to watch him at World's Strongest Man. So those are the people competing in Group 1. My personal opinion, Group 1 is the most challenging of all the groups. I know there's a lot of talk online about Group 5 being very challenging, and it is. And folks talk about, was this an unfair pairing or whatever? Group 1's the most challenging group. You heard it here. People don't give, I think, Maxime and Ivar's the credit they deserve for the things they've accomplished very recently. And in addition to Evan Singleton and his group, for example, they're going to do things that are surprising, I think. So, as I said, on my channel, we do in-depth analysis. We don't say, Brian's done very well in yoke in the past, and therefore he'll win, and so forth. We do analysis of the prep. We do analysis of recent competitions, and we put that all down into my blog, Strongest Spreadsheet, so we can come up with actual numerical data and evidence of who will advance to the group. So, taking a look at Maxime Boudreau first, we have a frame loading medley in the qualifiers. I didn't see him do a frame. I did see him do some very impressive loading over a 72-inch bar. That's 6 feet. It's crazy. I mean, the guy's 6'4". He's putting it almost over his head. So he had 102, 121, and 136 kilo sandbags. Very fast, super fast. And so I think he'll do very, very well in this particular event. Graham Hicks, I didn't see him do frame or loading. And then Travis was working with 173 kilos plus whatever the weight of his frame was, which I didn't know, so I don't know what the total weight was. And then Brian Shaw. So Brian is like the Stoltmans in a way. On his Instagram, he's kind of posting other things, maybe some marketing things he's working on. And he does put training on there, but mostly accessory work. And the event-specific training, you don't always get weights and numbers, right? You do sometimes, but not always. Now, if you go to the Shaw Strength YouTube channel, you get a lot more of that, but still, like I saw him doing heavy frame, for example, and a heavy yoke, and I could tell there was 540 pounds on the yoke, but I don't know what the weight of the yoke is, and he didn't say. So, which is totally fair. I know some of the guys like to keep exact weights kind of close to the vest, just for competitive purposes, and that's totally fine. So I'll have to use a little bit of intuition with Brian, just with how fast I saw him doing some of these events. And I'll say this. I spoke to JF Caron recently, and JF told me that if this frame is the one that he's seen used in World's Strongest Man in the past, I think he described it as the red one with the small handles. He said Brian's probably the best in the world at that. So the difficulty comes into the fact that it's a medley, though. So I think Brian blows all these guys away on the frame portion. He is the best there. But I think that Ivar's and Maxime catch up and maybe pass on the loading portion because of their speed in addition to their strength. So speaking of Ivar's, he was working with a frame of unknown weight. He also didn't say how much it weighed, but it looked very impressive. And on the loading portion, my best evidence for him is he was 4th out of 15 guys recently at World's Ultimate Strongman Bahrain in a loading event. So you got to give him a lot of credit for being very, very strong in loading as well. So again, as I mentioned, I did all the research for deadlift and kind of got some information yesterday from folks on the internet piecing together that they don't think Group 1's getting deadlift. They think they're getting squats. And so squats, I think, slightly favors Brian. He's a good deadlifter, but I think from what I've seen, he's a better squatter. And if we take a look at all the numbers here, and we go by the weights that Big Law's kind of from his, let's call it insider knowledge. I don't think they've told him exact weights either, but he kind of gathered a range and shared that on his channel. And so I feel like that range will be like in this 318 kilo sort of range for reps on squats. So I took what I saw the guys doing and broke it down with a 1-rep calculator that I found online that actually calculates different numbers of reps to see where they would be in that range. Maxime Boudreau was doing 337 kilo squats for 3, so I think that would allow him to do 318 for about 5. I don't see an endurance problem with him, so I think he'll get those 5 done. Graham Hicks did 330 for 5, which on an axle, by the way, which means that he'd do 318 for about 6. Travis Ortmeyer did 325 kilos for 3, so these guys are kind of all in the same similar range, just slightly separated maybe by a rep or 2. And so Travis, I think gets 318 also for 3, because 318 and 325 are kind of close together. Maybe he squeezes out a 4th. And then Brian Shaw had this really impressive, I think it was on both on Instagram and on his YouTube channel, where he had these really large tires and also a few plates on a more of a whippy bar. Folks were calling it a deadlift bar that he was squatting on. And a lot of people, including Travis, were commenting how Brian's stability was really otherworldly in being able to hold this thing steady. And I think that bar and that setup with the big tires is kind of the closest replication I've seen to the big globes they're going to use at World's Strongest Man. The only issue I have is Brian did 2 reps with it, and I don't know the weight of it. So endurance kind of comes into play. Not endurance, speed, really. So I think that Max, for example, will move faster if by virtue of being shorter than Brian, if nothing else at all, right? Graham Hicks will move faster because he has a lot less of a range to squat. And so when you take, it's sort of like a car. When you have a car, you have the parameters of weight and power. So you can keep adding power to the car and make it faster, or you could reduce weight and make it faster. But when you have both light and power, you're really explosive. And that's what I think we have with Max. He's very powerful and very fast. Graham Hicks, same thing. Very powerful and has a lot less range of motion to go than Brian has to go. So just taking, if he had less range of motion but was nowhere near as strong as Brian, you'd have a quandary on your hands. But he is. So I think that kind of makes the determination there. Ivar Smokstelis did 320 kilos for 5 reps, 3 sets. And so I think he'll do that 318 for 5 reps as well. So again, everybody kind of in a similar range there. Then moving on to the Fingals Fingers. Again, rumor has it this group gets Fingals, not train pull. Maxime had 525-pound fingers that he did for 2 reps. Not super fast, but that's a pretty heavy finger. I think he's chosen a good weight that will show up in World's Strongest Man as one of the, I think World's Strongest Man might have 4 fingers. So that might be one of them. Graham Hicks was working fingers as well, not especially fast. He did prep it, but not especially fast. And then Travis Ortmeyer happened to be prepping with fingers when he got hurt. So he had a back injury at the time. And he's a really motivated guy. So he decided, I should probably take some time off, but I got to beat this thing. And so he went out and did his 1 rep with his finger anyway. And props to Travis for being really motivated and not letting the weights defeat him. And I'm super excited to see Travis Ortmeyer compete this year. Then Brian Shaw, I wrote down medium. I'm going to change this. What I meant by medium is speed. And he's fast. He is not medium. So I'm gonna change that on the fly here. I've actually, as I've seen the other guys practice fingers, I've changed my position on how good I think Brian is with Fingals Fingers. And actually, I think he's going to win this event in his group now. So I've changed my position there. Brian, he is pretty fast. So if you check out Shaw's strength, the funny thing is he purchased a finger and he wanted to work out with it in his mountain gym, and it was too tall. It would hit the ceiling. So he and Steve Ocean were working out together. They had to cut a piece off, I don't know, a foot and a half, something like that. So the thumbnail says 500 pounds, ? So I think what happened was he may have purchased the same model that Maxime has. That's 525. And when you cut off the piece, it becomes 500. That's just my guess. He didn't say so, but I find that very interesting. I don't think that 25 pounds is going to make a difference. At first, I thought, oh, well, he's lifting a lighter finger. But he's so fast with it that I think, like, if it weighed 25 pounds more, it wouldn't stop him. It wouldn't slow him down at all. Moving on, past the train pull. It would be awesome to see Brian do a train pull, but I think it's not going to happen. We move to the overhead medley. Overhead medley, we think it's 2 dumbbells, not at the same time, and around 110 kilo range, somewhere between 95 and 110. And Maxime was doing 114 for 4 on a circus, which means he'd probably be able to do 124 for a 1 rep max. Then we have Graham Hicks. I didn't see him doing circus, but his overhead pressing power is incredible. Of course, dumbbells have a lot of technique involved in them as well, so we'll see what happens. Travis Ortmeyer did that 110 that we're expecting to be the maximum at World's Strongest Man, or at least it looked like it was a 110, and he did that for 1 rep. And then Brian Shaw was doing 64 kilos for doubles. For both hands, 64 in both hands at the same time. And now, here's where the numbers we deviate from the numbers and go with intuition. 64 kilos is way, way less than what these other guys are doing. But there are certain guys in the world that you know are the best at certain events, and you just have to go with that based on so much evidence in the past. So much evidence in the past tells me that Alexei Novikov is the best circus dumbbell presser in the world, and Brian is number 2 right now. It doesn't matter what that number says. So Brian will get that circus dumbbell at World's Strongest Man up faster than anybody else. Now, we'll get to the other 2 pieces of the medley, but as far as that, there's no question. He could be lifting 10 kilos. I'd still say he's the best circus dumbbell presser in this group. Then we have Ivar Smokstelis, who super impressively was number 2 out of 15 guys at World's Ultimate Strongman Bahrain with a dumbbell press. So again, you can't overlook this guy. He's doing some incredible things very recently. So moving on to the circus barbell, which will be a whippy bar, globes on the end. So guys are trying to mimic that, using a more flexible bar as well as they can, because that specific bar is hard to kind of get your hands on. And hadn't seen anybody but Travis kind of practice that, and it looked like he had 146 kilos for 1, which is a little lighter than what he'll encounter at contest, but I think he'll get up to that 165-ish range by contest time. And then as far as the axle goes, Maxime did a 173 axle. It's going to be probably, we're thinking 163 at World, so way above there, doing well. Travis with a 125 there, so he's got a bit of progress to make up there. And then Ivar's did what looked like 166.4 kilo for 1 as well. So that's right around, maybe slightly heavier than contest weight. And Brian, again, prepping with all this stuff, but I just don't know what the weights are. So I kind of have to take a comparison visually of what I see there and what he's done in the recent past. Moving on to the pickaxe hold. So pickaxe hold is a difficult one to predict because not a lot of guys are prepping it. Like the Stoltmans are prepping it. They actually showed not an actual axe, but with a plate on the end of a short bar. And you can see, they time themselves. It was an easy thing where I can predict. Not a lot of other guys are really prepping with it. So what I had to do was go by physics, right? So just like when you're trying to press a log versus an axle, the axle is against your body right over the center of gravity. The log, because of its diameter, if it's a 12-inch log, the center of the log is 6 inches away from your body. So that, among other things, the hand placement and so forth, makes it more of a difficult proposition to press. Same thing here. If you're holding an axe and your arms are much longer than another guy, just the physics of it make it more difficult to hold it up here as opposed to here closer to your body. So I had to go with the shorter guy. And again, when we're talking about that car analogy with the weight and power, Graham Hicks, in this case, shorter guy, likely has shorter arms than Brian Shaw. I think everybody has shorter arms than Brian Shaw except Tom Stoltman. And so he has kind of the physics advantage and the super powerful shoulders. I think Graham Hicks wins the pickaxe, and I think Brian has some trouble, maybe not last, but because of his long arms. Brian's shoulders are huge and strong, But again, he's holding up heavy arms as well as that axe. So we'll see where he lands. So all that being said, let's take a look at the predictions for Group 1, World's Strongest Man. Here it is. You've been waiting for it. World's Strongest Man 2021 qualifying group predictions. All that being said, frame loading medley, Maxime Boudreau wins that event with Ivar Smockstellis coming in second. I think Brian Shaw comes in third because of his great frame ability, but I think he gets overtaken by the other two guys in the loading portion. Travis Ortmeyer comes in next, and I think Graham Hicks comes in last in this particular event. Moving on to the squats, here I had a bit of an issue. So I think Graham's squats, as I showed you, are incredibly impressive in prep. And so I think he squeaks out the most reps in squats, again, because he's looking super powerful in prep and because he has the lowest range of motion, so he can get out more reps. It's a timed event, right? It's more likely that he can get out more reps in a certain amount of time. Then I feel like after that, three guys tie. I feel like Maxime, Ivars, and Brian all do the second highest number of reps. There won't be a big distinction there. And then I think Travis does one less rep than those guys. Moving on to the Fingles Fingers, I have Brian Shaw winning Fingles Fingers. He looks strong and fast with a relatively heavy finger and is doing multiple reps with it in practice. I then have Maxime coming in second in Fingles Fingers because he looks like he's using the same or slightly heavier finger in practice. Not as fast as Brian, but very heavy and doing his prep work there. I have Ivar's third on Fingles. Just given, I haven't seen him do it, but his overhead looks strong, and part of a fingers is an overhead. Yes, it's a leg drive too, but I had to extrapolate there, and I think he comes in third. And then Travis would be next because he did practice with the Fingles Fingers, and I think Graham, just again, by virtue of his height being a benefit in some of the other events, I think is kind of a detriment here. He has to take more steps, more hand placements to get the thing over, and he'll be last in Fingles Fingers. Moving on to the overhead medley, Maxime Boudreau wins the overhead medley with Graham Hicks right after him. Graham has otherworldly renowned overhead power, so Graham will come in second, and that's only because I think Maxime does better in the dumbbell portion. Ivars comes in third, Brian fourth, and Travis Ortmeyer comes in fifth in the overhead medley. Moving on to the pickaxe, here's what we just discussed. I think Graham Hicks easily wins the pickaxe, and I think Graham Hicks will be the best pickaxe holder of any of the 25 guys, in my opinion. Coming in next, I think Ivars comes in second on the pickaxe hold. I think Brian, a respectable third, but won't win this event just by the physics points that we discussed. Maxime Boudreau comes in fourth here, I believe, and then Travis will come in fifth in the pickaxe hold, and Travis could do a little better here. Some of this might be switched apart. So what does that mean for total points? Maxime runs away with winning the Group 1. I know I'm going to get roasted on the internet about this for not picking Brian, but tell me where I went wrong. I'm happy to get feedback on anywhere I calculated this wrong, but I don't want to hear intuition. I don't want to hear Brian's going to do it because he's done it before. I want to hear numbers. Here's where his numbers are not what you thought they were, and you should reconsider, and I will reconsider. So Maxime wins, and then that puts us in a quandary because I have Ivar second with 17 points, and then I have Graham and Brian tied with 16 each. So you have to do some sort of count back to figure out which guy becomes third and goes into a stone off against Ivar's. And if it's like last year, the information I had from last year is the count back goes to the last event. Last event was pickaxe, and I have Graham doing better than Brian in pickaxe, so I believe Graham will become the person to go against Ivars in stone off, and I think Ivars beats Graham in stone off. So Maxime Boudreau and Ivar Smockstellis move out of Group 1 into the World's Strongest Man 2021 finals. So your first two World's Strongest Man 2021 finalists are Maxime Boudreau and Ivar Smockstellis. Let me know in the comments below whether you agree with everything I said or you disagree with everything I said or somewhere in between. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you again soon when I do Group 2 predictions. And of course, as always, ciao, homie. So if you like this video and haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing using that button right there. And also stay tuned for some other videos that you might love blooping up right there. This one is the one that YouTube thinks that you will like the best, and this one is the one that I think you will like the best. As always, share this with everyone, and until next time, ciao, homie.